I'm super excited
Perfect.
for this presentation. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of great insights into how to have a better ABM strategy.
We can hope for that. So I want to quickly reiterate something that Kendall just shared, which is, you can talk through a bunch of different strategies and a bunch of different ideas, but if you don't have the right people in place to do it, it's not going to be super effective. And I think that is what we'll actually talk through a lot today. When we think about ABM, a lot of people think about technology first. We often think about people and processes first. So this is going to be an exact playbook on how you can get the first step in ABM in motion, and then actually get right people, right processes in place, get your right foundation, and then actually think through, is this a program worth scaling? So with that, let's go ahead and dig right in. I like to make all of our sessions super tactical and super actionable. So if you want to get the most out of this session, there are a couple of things you can do. First off, go ahead and open up your CRM, your marketing automation, or data enrichment platform in another tab. We'll come back to that here in just a moment. Additionally, if you are a pen and paper kind of person, or if you're a little bit like me and you just like to open up another Google tab, I would start to write out a quick framework that is data, distribution, destination, and direction. We'll come back to that here in a moment. I'm stealing this from my now new friend, Kyle Jepson. I met him last week at another conference. He used to have a slide that would pull up a cell phone, and he would say like, people think I'm going to tell you silence your distractions, which I will in a moment. What he started recommending, and I think it's a genius idea, you are spending time here, but I can almost guarantee that you have other team members that probably have questions around ABM. So if you have questions or your team members have questions, go into the general channel in Slack or your general marketing channel or wherever you kind of live for internal comms and say, hey, I'm watching this guy talk really quickly about ABM. He may have a couple of smart things to say, maybe. What questions do you have? And I'd love to go ahead and actually not just answer your questions, but the questions of your entire team. And then lastly, information on implementation is absolutely useless. You're going to spend 30 minutes with me, and I don't want it to be a waste of your life. So go ahead and set a time block in your calendar for next week with your ops and content team, and you can actually use what you're going to learn today and make use of this time, because otherwise you're wasting your time and you should go do something else that you'll actually go and implement. With that, who is familiar with the crawl, walk, run approach? I'm going to ask that you actually engage in the comments in the chat real quick. So if you are familiar, just go ahead and say like, yes, I am. I'm going to say, all right, we got a couple people saying, yes, they are. So here's what's fun about the crawl, walk, run approach. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you know I have a beautiful little girl. She just turned 9 months old. And I'm thinking now a lot differently about crawl, walk, run. So the idea here is it comes from the idea of like raising a child and helping a child learn to run. So fun fact, for those of you that may have children or may not have had children, the average time it takes a baby to crawl from age 0 is about 7 to 10 months. So that crawl stage is like around 7 to 10 months. The next stage is generally where they learn to walk. And that happens somewhere between ages 10 months old to 18 months old. And then lastly, that run. For children, the run stage of their life where they learn to actually run is anywhere from age about 18 to 24. If you want to fact check me, go Google it right now. It's the very first search result. It is a snippet. I promise that is what Google says. I checked it right before we hopped on this. But let's say, I don't know, hypothetically, I wanted to take my 5-month-old that doesn't even know how to crawl, and let's say I wanted her to learn to run almost immediately. Like, let's say I've got 6 months to get her running. What would I go and do? I would probably go buy the absolute best running equipment. I'd get her the watch. I'd get her the headphones. I'd get her the perfect running shoes, the sunglasses. I'd ensure that she had the best equipment, because it is the equipment that makes us incredibly effective runners. So when you take my daughter plus running equipment, we will get Usain Bolt. Right? No, of course not. But when we think about building an ABM program, we often think tech first. We have to buy the right tools in order to get the right results, because if we don't have the right tools, we can't do the right things. And in reality, when you get this tech first, without right foundations of learning to crawl, you're just setting money on fire. And I'm going to bring this really close to home, and this is going to be really uncomfortable for a lot of people. But like, this is why I think we're actually seeing a lot of our friends get laid off. This is why we're seeing so many budget cuts, because we've significantly invested from something that was destined to fail on the front end. And I want to give context. I'm not just saying this from the perspective of someone that's like built a business and I'm out of it. I did this since 2020. I invested in all the wrong things, and I was not set up for success. And as a result, I failed and had to transition out of an organization. I know this firsthand. This is incredibly hard. And that's why today we're going to talk about how to crawl. And nobody likes to talk about it because crawling sucks. But if you don't learn how to crawl, you can't walk and then you can't run. So, with that context, hi, I'm Mason. That photo of that daughter is not a stock image. That is my actual daughter. She clearly takes after her mom. I'm a husband first, a father second, and then I also happen to run a company called Scrappy ABM. In the past 3 years, I've sourced $6.5 million in revenue that is sourced, not influenced. Like programs that we built using a Scrappy ABM methodology have resulted in $6.5 million at an 18x ROI. So I know that this stuff works because we've lived it in a post-COVID era. And what we do as an organization, we're the only organization that builds step-by-step programs for the crawl stage of account-based marketing. We get programs started and proven out. We prove the model. Our goal is to make clients successful without us. So we only plan to work with a client for like 12 to 18 months. They'll get everything that they need from us and then they'll offboard. And that is good. So that's who I am. That's what we do. So I always like to level set when we talk about ABM, because if you Google it, you're going to get 100 different definitions. So ABM is a B2B revenue strategy that aligns marketing, sales, and CSR in a set of shared target accounts. That is our definition for today. Who is ABM for? I'm going to rattle through this super quickly. Dedicated B2B companies with a dedicated sales team. They've got established product market fit. I'll come back to that in just a moment. An average contract value about $50,000, a sales cycle of about 90 days or longer. They have an expansion opportunity within their customer base, and they have a clear market focus for their target accounts. The asterisk on product market fit and ACV is we work with a couple of clients that have a total addressable market of 500, total addressable market of 1,000, and a total addressable market of 2,000. Their entire market is 2,000 companies total, because they're so niche and they're so specific. In that context, you shouldn't run anything but ABM. So again, that's the asterisk. It doesn't matter your ACV, because if you're that specific and that niche and that nuanced, why would you run anything else? Like we were talking with the client that has total addressable market of 500, talking about this big ABM program. And like, we could cold call everybody in 6 weeks. Like we can literally reach everybody. Shifts your perspective a little bit. So again, if you're like me, our address market is massive. We build ABM programs for B2B companies. We're problem specific. Like we need to find a clear vertical focus to build an ABM program, because we are industry agnostic in our nature, whereas there's a lot of vertical SaaS companies or a lot of vertical specific companies. So again, if you're running a vertical specific marketing program, ABM, great fit. I'm also going to be super weird as a speaker. If this doesn't match you, I want you to not waste your time with me, because you're not going to get value out of this session. This is exactly who I speak to. So if this is you, let's have a good time. If this is not, that's okay. We can still be friends. You can follow me on LinkedIn. But like, today's not your day with me, and that's okay. With that, why does ABM fail? Again, I'm super fun at parties because we talk often about why things fail. And there's 3 very clearly documented, very well-researched reasons. And if you Google it, you'll find tons of data that supports this. The number one reason is the lack of sales and marketing alignment. I'll give you a quick example. Marketing says leads, and they mean contacts generated. Sales says leads, and they mean opportunities generated. When we say the same words but mean different things, as a result, we're misaligned. So the first step to anything is figuring out what we're actually talking about and getting clear definitions. Nobody likes to make a glossary, but it's super important, because if you have conversations, you all say the same words, but you mean different things, you can't actually have a real conversation. So that's the first place. Getting aligned with sales, you speak the same language. The next piece is the lack of dedicated resources. The worst thing that could happen today is you listen to this session and you're an executive leader and you're like, that's a genius idea. And you go back and you Slack your marketing manager tomorrow and say, we should build an ABM program. And you add it as a bullet point on their job description. And then you ask them to build an ABM program. And ABM, as a side note, is actually organizational change. You are trying to shift the way in which we go to market. And if you give that to a marketing manager, you've given them the accountability to build ABM, but not the authority to create organizational change. So if you don't dedicate the time and resources to this, it will not work. And then lastly, it is super hard to measure. Quick example, you have your ICP. So who are we going after? So you got to measure that as a part of your account score. You also want to factor in first-party engagement data to see if they know that we exist and they're aware of us. You also want to factor in third-party intent data to get outside buying signals. And you also want to weight the engagement differently based on who it is in the buying committee. Because a CMO, in my context, should be weighted differently than the marketing manager, because they have different authorities within the buying committee. That's 4 separate factors that should all be cobbled together to build up this account score, to show that for our sales team, this account is red hot. They're super on fire. You got to go get them out right now. That's really hard. But that's what a lot of people think about when they go to build this account model is how we're going to measure it. So if you don't have answers to these three questions, ABM is not going to work well. And my hope that after the session is you have clear answers for how to solve for these three things to get started. And we refer to that as an activation playbook. I think we invented this concept. I've started to see more people talk about it in theories, but like the framing of activation plays are something that I think we've made up. If I'm not correct on that and I stole it from somebody else, please tell me. But I've been talking about it for a year and a half and nobody else seems to know what I'm talking about until I define it, which activation plays are the repeatable processes for when sales or CS become involved in specific customer conversations. What that functionally means: an ICP fit account hits your website for your pricing page, your schedule a call page, and your product pages, but doesn't book a call. Specific tangible actions that then indicate to us we should probably reach out. You've also probably heard of this as like signal go-to-market. This event is hosted by Signals. So all these things are just signals. It's trigger-based go-to-market. There's 100 different ways that you can think through this. But at the core, what is the signal or the trigger that indicates to us that we should reach out in a specific way? Close loss programs, customer win-back programs, expansion opportunities based on product usage. We were working with a client that had a customer of theirs that had 7,000% utilization of their tool. The upsell motion was so obvious, but they hadn't operationalized it to surface that information to their sales team or to their CS team. So activation playbooks are surfacing information so that we can activate on it with right messaging to right people. That's what we're going to talk through today. Why do we start here? The line between marketing and sales is super, super natural because we're not coming to sales with the super complex, like, here's the account score, and this is the methodology for how we develop this account score, and this is why you should, it's like, hey, they hit our product page, our pricing page, and our schedule call page, and they're the right fit customer that you've been trying to get in front of for like 3 months. You should probably reach out to them. And sales says, sounds good, thanks. And you're not passing over hundreds and hundreds of leads on a weekly basis. You're passing over probably like tens. So they're right fit, high actual intent because they're engaged. So that's the first piece. Next piece, things are super simple. I've just explained it. And for most people, they kind of get the concept in about 10 minutes. It's not hard to understand. It's a little bit complex and hard to operationalize and actually execute. But in theory, super easy. And then lastly, you can start to transition your KPIs and your technology to actually measure in an account way, because instead of thinking from a marketing perspective about impressions and reach and specific people that actually fill out a form, we're now thinking about this audience that we wanted to go after, did our specific intended actions, and as a result, we have meetings on our calendar. It starts the transition to an account-focused approach. How it works, super simple. Identify a trigger. Ideally, you're looking at your first-party data because there's a higher likelihood of brand awareness if they live in your CRM, whereas if you're going exclusively to third-party data, you have to do further education. So that journey for the buyer is much longer if you go to third-party versus using first-party data. So start with first-party, and what this functionally means: open up your CRM, look at all of your contact properties, all of your company properties, all of your deal properties, and understand what is happening. What is the data that we're capturing as a part of our existing flows? And then as a result, how do we trigger that information to our sales team? That's a workflow with automated list segmentation. That's it. From there, you then give those lists to your sales team. This functionally looked like for one of our clients, they set a 15-minute time block every single Tuesday with their sales team to review their individual list. They were geo-specific in nature, and it just automated the list segmentation for the sellers. They were scanned over the list. They each got about 100 on a weekly basis. And then they enrolled them to an outbound sequence, and they followed the sequence steps. That was it. And if you think about this from a data perspective, you have the same data source every single time. So website engagement, as people continue to hit your website that are right fit people, you can run this over and 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 over again. This doesn't end. This becomes a foundation for continued strategic outbound motions that actually get meetings on the calendar. So that's how this works. As far as how you should structure this, this is the 4D framework that we'll come back to, but data is the first piece. So who are we going after? And underneath data, there's two other questions you have to answer. Who are we going after? Why are we reaching out? Sales will sing hallelujah when I say this, but when you pass a lead list from an event and say, hey, these people went to our booth, maybe we should reach out. I legitimately got cold called by a company that said, hey, it looks like you went to one of our recent events. And that was as specific as they got. because they probably had a list of 1,000 people from the event, and I was nowhere close to a fit. So when you actually have trigger-based approaches, you give clear reasons to reach out. So it's not just, hey, there's a right fit person that maybe did a thing somewhere in the world, but they are a right fit person that did a specific tangible action. And then also you provide templatized messaging. It's not everything. They still need to nuance it. They still need to do further research, but you give them a starting point so that they can actually go and do something with the information. That's data. Next is distribution. What are the channels and tactics we're going to use to get in front of these people? Could be social, could be email, could be cold call, could be social ads. It could be organic. Sorry, I already said social. Whoops. Could be like marketing automated emails. There's 1,000 different distribution channels. Could be Reddit, could be X, could be Facebook. Who cares? Where's your audience and how do you get in front of them? Next would be destination. What are you pushing them to? This is not, hey, let's reach out to get them to book a call. Hey, this is you've done things. You probably have gaps in your education. We're going to push you to be educated on something else. Could be a case study, could be blog content, could be a podcast, could be 1,000 things. What's the content you're going to push them to? And then lastly is direction. How are you tracking all of these things so you understand if they're doing the intended actions? That is our 4D framework for how you build these playbooks. If you want some sample ideas, website re-engagement, I'm just going to start rattling off some free tools you can start using today. So like Factor.ai, RB2B, Warmly, all three of those do website re-engagement playbooks. You could use a tool called FYIGTM that surfaces up industry-specific news. It's not intent, it's research, and it gives you context for how to use that research in your sales outreach. Everybody knows about third-party intent, so you use Bombora or G2. All of those, in my mind, are more directional signals that help you understand who might be in market. But when you marry third-party intent with first-party engagement, that is how you really get somebody in your pipeline. Another one, big fan of champion tracking. I worked at a company that sourced 30% of their revenue through champion tracking. Good friend is over at UserGen, sourced 23% of their revenue through champion tracking every single year. The idea is you follow somebody that's bought you previously to their new company. Because you have the understanding of who is leaving, you can retain that former customer, and then you can close the new customer because you've had someone that's bought your services previously or your product previously go to a new company. Huge opportunities there. The best place to start with any program is closed loss because you have the best data there and nobody's loyal to that closed loss pipeline. Really, the best place to start is customers, but people are loyal to their customers. They don't want to put revenue at risk with a new experiment. Whereas with closed loss, you have really great data because they've already walked through a sales process and you can actually use that data to re-engage them. So huge opportunities on closed loss. And then lastly, customer win-backs. We built a customer win-back program for one of our clients because they had lost customers due to lack of features, but they had made 18 product updates in 6 months. And as a result, they were able to re-engage those past customers and bring them back because they had the new features. So again, huge opportunities on customer win-backs, especially because I know thousands of companies have been really struggling with churn the past couple of years. So again, look at those that have lost and churned previously and see if you can re-engage and bring them back. Huge opportunities there. And also in the context of a customer upsell, customers will look at your other products. So like, are you using your marketing data on your customers to see third-party intent? If they're actually showing in-market buying signals for the thing that they're using you for right now, indication that they may be churning soon, or are they looking at your other complementary services and products to then upsell? Huge opportunities on all of those fronts. All right, so now we built this activation playbook. What comes next? I'm glad you asked. If you think about ABM in a very simplified way, there are 3 core stages. Stage 1 is marketing does stuff to engage accounts. Then stage 2 is sales and marketing get involved and actually trying to convert that deal. And then stage 3 is marketing and sales work together until the deal closes. Those are the 3 stages. The activation playbook on the prospect side of things is really your stage 2. It is how do we get sales involved in our sales process and our ABM process. And as a result, if you can actually build that out first, and I highly, highly, highly recommend building something around website re-engagement, because if you can start there, you can actually build a full ABM program around that, because your website engagement will be things around like product page, pricing page, schedule, a call page. And as a result, then the goal from a marketing perspective is how do we drive more of our customers into those pages that are educated and actually are exploring those in a real way because they see us as a viable solution. They're problem aware, they're solution aware, and they view us as a viable solution. Then sales can get involved and you work it as a re-engagement playbook. And then from there, the goal is now that we have an understanding of our data source, how do we actually now increase conversions post trigger? Once sales has gotten involved, do they need better case study content? Do they need better one-pagers? Do we need to build out new playbooks that involve multiple decision makers in our sales cycle? Huge opportunities here. This is where some people get a little bit cross-eyed. Here's the thought process. The prospect playbooks are often at this meaningful engagement stage. So think about meaningful engagement again, product, service, pricing, schedule of call pages. They now know that you exist. They understand your solutions, and there's a high likelihood that they might be looking at you. Now the question is, how do we get sales involved in re-engaging them to actually create a qualification call where you're qualifying based on budget and timing, not fit? That should have been assessed before the awareness stage, but on timing and budget. And then you run an opportunity cycle. That's that. Once you've now built out that process, the goal then for marketing is how do we get more of our right fit customers to know that we exist? I say this over and over and over and over and over again. Nobody wants to run an ABM awareness program, but nobody can buy from you if they don't know that you exist. So at the awareness stage, how do we make people know that we exist and get them on our website, get them on places where they can actually engage in our helpful, meaningful content? And then through those content assets, get them to places that are meaningful engagement. So huge opportunity. And once you've actually gotten them to that meaningful engagement stage, you've already built out the rest of the process and sales gets involved. And now you are just running a true ABM program. Huge opportunities if you can do this. Hey, I talked really fast. So if this has been helpful, we have a podcast that has 70 episodes already on it. And we talk about this literally twice a week. We're about to up to 3 times a week and just walking through playbooks and actionable ways that you can actually build an ABM program. So let's go ahead and talk through the build process. This is your first month because now we want to take this concept and actually give you the step-by-step on how do you actually bring this into fruition. The first step is a content and ops alignment. If you go back to that 4D framework, the first piece is understanding who we're going after and what content do we have that supports going after that audience. The goal here is not to build a content audit so you can see all your content gaps. The goal here is to build a content audit so you can understand what content do we have available to get in market as quickly as humanly possible. Once you've identified the existing audiences and the content that you can use, now you've got a clear understanding of where should we start to focus. And then you want to look at your distribution channels to understand how do we get in front of that audience. And you also want to look at the ways that you can actually track the engagement with that audience. Again, there are a ton of free fringe tools that you can use that are helpful for tracking. You can use like Sales Intel or Apollo for free to get started to get data enrichment. There's again, tons. You could use a company like Signals that helps you with that website re-engagement and that de-anonymization of your website traffic. Huge opportunities if you can actually start to do this super, super well. Once you've then identified audience, content, distribution channels, and tracking components, then the goal here is to identify within that data set, what are the opportunities that we have to then activate specific triggers. And I'll give you a quick example again. Once you've now identified all your different triggers, which again, closed loss website re-engagement, missed meeting playbooks. If you've got a podcast, huge proponent of podcast playbooks, not for the purpose of closing the guest, but actually for the purpose of turning the guest into a referral opportunity and actually trying to get the guest to send their friends your way. Huge opportunities there, customer win-back programs. Again, those are just like 5 offhand that I mentioned. Event activation is a huge one that I really, really love. And going to an event, speaking on our topic, showcasing our authority, and trying to get people to actually come and work with us. So identify your triggers. And then what you want to do is get internal alignment from marketing and sales, ideally, specifically sales leadership. I hate to put it this bluntly, but like you need a BDR bought in or an SDR or an AE bought in to actually do the work. But at the end of the day, to build this kind of a program, you're going to need sales leadership buy-in to make the first steps here. So get internal alignment around prioritization. So again, here are some quick ideas that most people have in some context. And then what you do is you build out a list of like, all right, this is the first one we're going to build. We're going to go build closed lost or dead no response. So like they book a call and they never showed up. We're going to build event activation. And then we've got all these tech partners. We're going to do a partner play here. Then we've got a customer play. Then we've got a competitive rip and replace. We can maybe do a different customer. And like you prioritize what are the different playbooks you want to start building. And this is like, one is like a month because the actual build process is once you've got the content and the ops alignment, then the goal is now, how do we nuance our messaging to reach this specific audience based on this specific trigger? And operationally, how do we make all that come together from an automated list segmentation and actually getting their information into a distribution channel? Next is then building out whatever the content could be. Again, to get it easy and to get it started, this is likely going to look like an outbound sequence that repurposes your existing content assets. And operationally, you're building workflows, automated list segmentation, and the notification of your sales team to then activate on these playbooks. You want to document all of this. You want these things to be easy to understand so that if you have to make changes down the road, you know where to actually make changes versus kind of guessing and stumbling back through it. You can test everything. And then week 4, you are launching this thing and working with your sales team to actually get it launched. That is how you go from 0 to actually a playbook in market. And realistically, once you've done the first one, that's the hardest part. Operationally, you can start to clone some of your workflows, and really then starting to nuance content based on triggers. Once you've got the first one up and running, you can probably do a playbook a month. That's what we do with our clients. And we're getting these things out in market and stacking different playbooks on top of each other to get an account from awareness into acquisition. So again, that is the super high level. There's a lot that we tried to cover in like a 30-minute time frame. And I would love to hear your questions. And I'm already starting to see some questions from Caitlin. So I'm going to go ahead and start answering questions unless you want to pop back in. But you mentioned one of the first ways to start marketing sales alignment is using the same language and even making a glossary. What are some other small things you can do to kickstart alignment? I think this entire presentation is intended to be a sales and marketing alignment exercise, because what I just outlined is how do you build a playbook that forces marketing and sales to work together on a set of shared target accounts in an 8-week time frame. This is the fastest way that and I've tried to make ABM go faster. This is the fastest way that we found to make it work. So if you can almost brute force a program that gets any wins, kind of the goal is that specifically around website re-engagement as an idea, if you can start to show some early wins and early success, sales will generally say something to the extent of this was freaking awesome. How do we do more of this? So now you're aligned from the front end. And if you go look at the data behind why ABM fails, one of the reason number 4 that it fails is actually meeting up with the demands of sales. So once you've gotten buy-in to go and do it, sales will then come back to you over and over and over and over and over again to try to get more out of you. And I'd rather live there than in I'm not going to touch what you do. It's a waste of our time. So again, getting an early quick win through closed loss programs, through website re-engagement, through customer win backs, using your existing data to then prove out that win is the easiest and fastest way to get that alignment with sales. Great question. Any other questions?
I had some questions. So you kind of break out what you can get done in a month. How large of a team do you need to really execute these ABM strategies?
Yeah. It's a great question. So as you look at this team, you need somebody that can own strategy, somebody that can own operations, somebody that can own content. And I'm very clear when I say somebody, when I was doing this often, operationally, this is not super complex ops work. This is often building a workflow in HubSpot. This is often figuring out the filtering criteria for an active list. And then working with your sales team to set a recurring meeting on the calendar. So operationally, it's ops work. It's not crazy ops work. So I used to do this by myself. Again, it's context scrappy ABM. We have strategy, content, operations. And then also for some of our more complex stuff, you probably need somebody that's more of an account manager or a project manager that can kind of herd all the cats. But if you have those 3 roles, and again, those 3 roles could be one person, then you're actually able to go and build these programs pretty quick.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You did say that it can take a lot of time, and you say that usually with customers, it takes around 12 months.
Let me clarify. We work with customers for 12 months to build a variety of playbooks. One playbook does not take 12 months. So again, to break it back down, if you just think about closed lost, you already have the buying committee involved because they were involved in the sales cycle. So you already have their contact information. You may need to enrich some of it based on people moving jobs. You already have their initial reason why they came in the first place. You likely, hopefully, have done some form of closed loss reason of we know why we didn't win the deal. And it may be no response. That's fine. It means you didn't build enough value. You have a lot of data there that you can then re-engage these accounts around. So the question is just how do we cohort our closed loss into specific closed loss reasons and ICP fits? And then we've got a specific vertical program that we can now go and run. That if you've got half decent data, and that's a big if sometimes, but if you have half decent data, that's half a day of really sitting down. And it's intentional focus work. You have to set aside the time. But if you really focused on this, you could build this out in 4 weeks.
Love it. I would love for people to give it a try and then share your stories on LinkedIn and maybe tag Mason in it. And this is really
Yeah.
cool and awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank
If
you.
people want to reach you, is the best way just to hit you up on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, email is mason@scrappyabm.com. And again, podcast is Scrappy ABM. So if you just Google Scrappy ABM, my dumb face should show up just about everywhere.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Mason. It's been a joy.
Yeah. Thank you.